影の世界から外に出ないか。ドリ。
In the dark, forgotten backyard of the Guilty Gear universe, there is a man who tasted glory, love, betrayal, death, until he lost the meaning of feeling to cling back to life. Zato-ONE, once the leader of the Assassin's Guild, has one of the most interesting character developments within Guilty Gear universe, alongside his embodiment of Shadow, Eddie. Throughout his story, Zato-ONE is portrayed as complex and layered character. He was once ruthless and calculating, but also deeply conflicted and haunted by his past and by his mistakes. His parasitic relationship with Eddie is a crucial aspect of his story, providing insight into his struggles with power and control. Zato-ONE is a character that has been present in the series since the beginning, and his complex and mysterious backstory has captured the imagination of many fans. I'm Arcadenaut here, and just like my previous video of Kazuya Mishima, today I'll be talking about Zato-ONE, his story, and how he changed through the Guilty Gear series, starting from the first title to the last.
Drowned in pain, I lost my mind, there's no good about in there. Drowned in pain, I lost my mind, there's no good about in there. Vanish into dark, it is hopelessness filled by the light.
Before Zato-ONE was considered as a mysterious, enigmatic leader of the Assassin's Guild, he was an orphan because of the Crusades, a war between the Gears and the Holy Order. Having nowhere to go, Zato was recruited by the Assassin's Guild, as Slayer being their leader during that time. There, Zato learned all he needed to survive, what an assassin needed to complete his mission. However, after Slayer's resignation, he also witnessed the fall and the decay of the very organization he called home. During this time, Zato felt powerless, so powerless that he was willing to sacrifice anything. And through the magical book of the Arcanum that contains 666 known spells discovered in the world, Zato sacrifices his eyesight to earn power, a power known as Life-Eating Shadow, that binds the forbidden beast to the caster's shadow. That beast, which lurks in Zato's shadow, will be known as Eddie in time. With this new forbidden power, Zato rose to the rank of leader of the Assassin's Guild, and around that time, Milia, Rage and Venom were recruited by the guild. At first, Zato was their mentor, their savior, and maybe their idol, as Zato quickly earned Venom's unbreakable loyalty, and with Milia, they quickly fell in love with each other. Three of them took countless of missions, and one of those missions were Zato was to take care of Dr. Baldhead, and instead of his target, Zato killed Dr. Baldhead's patient, ultimately leading Dr. Baldhead to blame himself for patient's death, driving him mad. This mad doctor was none other than Faust of the Guilty Gear universe. So, Zato was no saint, and being the leader of the Assassin's Guild ultimately led him to his downfall also, as he was also the target of the woman he loved, Milia. During one of the high-risk operations that Zato was leading, Milia's betrayal of Zato led to his arrest, where he was put in a barrier prison where he can't use his powers. And slowly, Zato's love towards Milia turned into hate, until he was visited by a tall, thin figure. This tall figure, who is known as Testament, asked Zato if he wanted to be out of the prison, and if he wanted to meet with the woman. Zato wondered how he knew of Milia, but all Zato had to do was win an upcoming tournament, and by doing so he would be free to punish her. With this offer, Zato agrees to compete in the tournament, which would lead to the events of the first Guilty Gear title. Other important figures of Guilty Gear universe like Sol Badguy, Kai Kisk, Chip Zanev, Potemkin and Dr. Baldhead also participated in this tournament. However, Zato had only one person in his mind, Milia Rage. Zato of the first Guilty Gear is more focused on close-range combat, and Zato's playstyle continued until Guilty Gear Strive. By using his demonic shadow, Zato can create spikes and chainsaw wheel to deal damage, and can also wear this shadow to charge against his opponents to deal insane amount of damage. His way of setting traps and manipulating the situation can also be seen within his playstyle, alongside close-range strikes, command grabs, and unpredictable mix-ups that can make him difficult to counter. During the second Holy Order selection tournament, Zato was also manipulated by Testament, just like others. The bloodshed and the violence from the tournament unleash justice from her seal, the very same being that is known as the first complete gear, causing the 100-year crusades by controlling all other gears to wage war against humanity. According to the canon story of Guilty Gear, Justice is killed by Soul Badguy. However, the constant struggles and the fights slowly began to take their toll on Zato. Having used too much of the forbidden technique, we see Zato's shadow beginning to move itself as being the embodiment of the demon Zato ruled, telling Zato that he can no longer control him. By the end of Zato's arcade story, we see Zato losing control to his own shadow, begging for help. The shadow, which took the control of Zato's body, will later be known as Eddie. Less than a year after the events of Guilty Gear, reports of a newly discovered Commander Gear surfaced, Dizzy, the daughter of Justice. Due to fear and concern about a second crusade, another Holy Order tournament begins to hunt Dizzy with her bounty of 500,000 world dollars for whoever captures or kills her. During the events of Guilty Gear X, Zato has no effect on Guilty Gear's universe, but his story evolves more around Zato, Eddie, and the Assassin's Guild, having more depth and more conflicts. Meantime, Zato is trapped in his own body by his demonic shadow, unable to act on his own will, desperately crying and yelling, looking for a way out. The very same demonic shadow, now in control of Zato's body, begins to follow the scent of Dizzy, and during his searches, he encounters a familiar face, Milia. During this encounter, Milia realizes that something is wrong with Zato. Right at this time, the shadow, who calls himself Eddie, taunts Milia, saying that Zato is drowned in pitch black. The fight between Milia and Eddie results in Milia's defeat. As Milia dares him to finish the job, nevertheless Zato resists with the remaining strength that he has, and rips Eddie off, thinking that it would kill them both. Later on in these events, eventually Zato's life force began to fade away due to involuntary overuse of the shadow, leading to the death of Zato and Eddie having almost complete control of Zato's body, using it as his own. By the end of Guilty Gear X, Zato was no more. In Guilty Gear XX, we don't have Zato, but we see Eddie controlling Zato's dead body, desperately searching for a new vessel as Zato's body continues to deteriorate. This time, there is no Holy Order tournament or anything, but the whole story of Guilty Gear XX focuses on each character's development and the chaos and the conflict that Eno creates between other characters. While Eddie desperately seeks a new vessel, Milia's story focuses on her quest of revenge against Eddie. First of all, Zato, or let's call him Eddie this time, received some major changes to his gameplay, and I think saying more accessible is the correct term here, so that more people would try to play as him. This, on the other hand, caused him to lose some of his more complex moves, causing him to be less effective in high-rank matches. If I were to go back to the story of Eddie, I need to say that the ending changes depending on how you play Eddie in Guilty Gear XX. However, the outcome is mostly quite similar, with Eddie's demise. As Eddie begins to search for a new body due to being aware that Zato's lifeless body won't last long, Eddie visits Faust, the former Dr. Baldhead, and depending on how long it takes for you to defeat Faust, two main different routes will appear before Eddie. If it takes too long to defeat Faust, Eddie's route will lead to Venom, whom I talked previously as the assassin who idolized Zato with an undying loyalty. As you can guess, Venom desires to take Zato's body back from Eddie, as this being the non-canon ending. If Eddie wins the battle, it taunts Venom's attachment and loyalty to Zato, and just as Eddie approaches to the brink of death without finding a new host body, it realizes that it's a forbidden spell and a demon. And of course with that has a different meaning of immortality compared to humans. Free of all doubt, Eddie releases himself from Zato's lifeless body, flying into the night, telling Venom to kill him if he can. However, the canon ending is where Eddie meets with Melia, where both Eddie and Melia engage in fight to death. As Eddie's time was slowly reaching to its limit, Eddie finally gives in to inevitable, realizing the meaning of life and how much of an impact he has left on others, especially with Zato's will. Feeling satisfied with this, Eddie begins to fade away before Melia's eyes. Eddie soon follows Zato into afterlife, presumably buried by Melia. The revival of Zato by the United Nations Conclave is spread across the globe. We see Melia trying to learn the truth, Slayer watching the forbidden art of resurrection, and Venom guarding, waiting for his master's return. One of the sages of the Conclave, Valdias, is using Zato as a guinea pig to develop the art of resurrection for his own plans. And 6 years after his death, Zato comes back to life. Alongside with Eddie, now rather than a parasitic relationship, they form more like a symbiotic relationship, as we see Eddie as Zato's partner and Shadow once again. However, Zato was different. He was no longer the same Zato that we knew from the first game. The art of resurrection changed Zato, or rather damaged him, ripped him of his emotions, his hatred, his fears, made him calmer as he accepted what he has done and would accept any kind of a punishment that anyone would do to him. Maybe because of that, even though they were in a dimensional prison, Zato makes no escape despite Eddie's words, until he remembers Melia and senses her being near the dimensional prison. And to see Melia, Venom and Slayer, oddly enough, Zato easily frees himself and re-enters the world of Guilty Gear stronger than before. When he arrives, Zato finds himself before Melia, Venom, and soon joined by Slayer at the Opera House, as the Conclave being Zato's aim. However, before his departure, his former target, Faust, appears to have his revenge on the man who ruined his life. Zato says that he can easily kill him if he wishes to, but he needs a little time before that, revealing why the Conclave targeted Faust at the first place. During the main story of Guilty Gear Xrd, Zato's quest takes him before Rammetal Valentine, and as he attempts to locate Kai Kisk to pass the intel he possesses. But due to circumstances, he is unable to and aims to return to his fellow assassins' side, only to find that they were attacked by Batman and taken to Uyghur. It was probably the best chance for Zato to show his newly attained powers with Eddie, as Zato attacks Batman for harming Melia, saving Chip Zanef. Seeing Zato's revival and his power, Batman disappears, leaving Zato behind. Later on, as meeting with Kai Kisk and Sol Badguy, Zato shares the intel that he wanted to. Conclave's desire to use the art of resurrection to bring justice back to life, so that they can shape the world however they wish to.
元老院の手によって
元老院だと。
はい。つまり私は君たちの欲しがっている情報を知っている。彼ら元老院の目的を。
When compared to Guilty Gear XX, Zato-ONE received a major overhaul in terms of his appearance and gameplay. His design was updated to make him look more modern, his moveset was changed to make him more versatile and effective. He gained new moves like the ability to summon multiple copies of Eddie, and his traps and mix-ups were made even more unpredictable. If I were to go back to the events of Guilty Gear Xrd, revived Zato was different than before, and in hopes of rebuilding his lovely guild, Zato made an offer to King Daryl, as enlisting the assassins as soldiers of the Kingdom of Illyria. At Slayer's mention, Zato relays the news to the others as the elimination of Batman as a symbolic requirement to join the government. However, rather than giving this mission to Zato to show his loyalty towards his master and the guild, Venom takes this mission upon himself, recruiting Robokai to help him.
そうか。では、良き旅を。
後のこと、ザトウ様のことをお頼みいたします。
During the battle at Illyrian capital, Zato, Melia and Slayer led the guild in defending the capital from Ariel's forces, against the massive gears that attack. As they struggle, Zato asks why Slayer saw light in him, and the vampire reminds them both of the previous operations and rekindling their convictions. As the battle ending with Ariel's defeat, Zato learns that Batman is also defeated by Venom and Robokai, who sacrifices his body to do it. Venom is declared dead, however survives the battle against Batman. In the aftermath, we see Zato announcing the revival of the Assassin's Guild. To test Venom's resolve in protecting the humanity, he makes him choose between protecting the town or rejoining the wolves. Rejoining means killing an innocent person for Venom's returnal. Venom rejects this and chooses to protect the town and receives a deed to a bakery that he may live a normal life alongside with Robokai, a bakery that is often visited by Zato and Milia later on.
しかしザトウ様、店の登録名義が私の名前そのままというのは何かの嫌がらせですか？
そういうな。うっかりというやつだ。だからちゃんと変装のノウハウを教えてやっただろう。
Guilty Gear Xrd presents a different Zato-ONE playstyle than before. His playstyle is more focused on controlling Eddie's summon while creating attention and pressure towards the rival. And Zato seems calmer, more gentleman-like than before, and often tries to recruit people to work for the government. In the following weeks after Guilty Gear Xrd story, King Daryl reinstitutes the Post-War Administration Bureau and hiring the assassins into the government with Milia as its director. As the United States agreeing on that man's involvement at G4 Summit, King Daryl also summons for Zato and Milia as specialists to investigate the White House. During their investigation, they report the Illyrian War Room to inform Daryl and Leo Whitefang of their findings. However, Leo Whitefang is still doubtful of assassins' recruitment to the government and to their methods. Zato and Milia's story in Guilty Gear Xrd is mostly about them trying to defend White House and how the new villain, Happy Chaos, hacked into their system. The important thing about Zato and the Assassin's Guild is the conversation between Leo Whitefang and Zato, as Zato tells Leo why the assassins have changed their ways to remain human, and how Leo warms up to both Zato and Milia. While Happy Chaos tries to restore godhood to Ino, Zato and Milia mostly works in the Illyrian War Room to nullify any threat Happy Chaos causes. And when all of these threats are over, during the aftermath, we see Zato, Milia, Leo and Kai reflect upon the events, and sometime afterward, we see Zato taking Milia to see Robokai and Venom at their bakery. In conclusion, Zato-ONE's story in the Guilty Gear series is a compelling, engaging tale that focuses on Zato's fall from grace and how he earns another chance in life to redeem his past mistakes. Zato-ONE has one of the most interesting and one of the most varied storytellings when compared not just with fighting characters but to all genres. Starting with villainous assassin to an officer of the government who is in peace with his inner demons. I'm looking forward to see how Guilty Gears' universe will shape Zato and Eddie in the future. As always, thank you for watching today's video, and I hope you enjoyed my second character evolution video. And as for the third character for this concept, we will have a strong lady who has also similar past and character development to Zato's, so stay tuned.
Vanish into dark.